Happy Memorial Day, everyone. Have gotten really behind in posting these weekly videos. The reason for that is I've been getting my new studio established. It's going to be really, really cool. A lot of stuff is in the works. I've already started a new project with composed of purely acoustic guitar and vocals, and I've already got three songs fully recorded and mixed. The final mixes are in, and they just need to be mastered. And so that'll be coming out in the next couple of months at the latest. And building the studio bit by bit, slowly, and it's really coming along. I'm really happy to see and hear what's been going on. That's probably the main reason why I've gotten a little bit backtracked with doing these weekly videos. Today is going to be one of three videos that I'm doing to sort of get caught up. And this particular video on this Memorial Day, first of three, is going to be about consistency. So anyone in any way, shape, or form of success and how that individual person defines success, they are consistent with whatever needs to happen based on the goals that they've set for themselves and the things that they want to achieve. They do XYZ consistently. And consistently is every day in some way, shape, or form. Their mind is there consistently, the visualization, they're envisioning what needs to be done, planning, strategizing, all of that. If they're not physically doing XYZ, behaviorally doing XYZ. So, and I'll probably post in the near future, not today, but, structuring goals and things like that. But consistency. Now, case in point, as such, life can happen and does happen. And because we're all human, we're not perfect. And, as such, we can get sidetracked, detoured, distracted. I mean, no one's immune to it. But those that are really on point are the ones that can immediately determine, hey, I've gotten detoured, I've gotten backtracked, I've gotten sidetracked, and are mindful of that in and of itself and when it happens. And to then in that moment, basically putting both feet back on the path and continuing to move forward towards those goals and the things that they want to achieve. So, that's extremely, and I use that word, I don't use that often, but for anybody that wants to be successful at anything, you've got to be mindful and aware of when that happens and then getting back on track. And, one thing also to remember is that two steps forward, one step back is, tantamount to kind of what the point that I'm making here is still, progress. So as long as you're doing that, the two steps forward, so to speak, and the one step back are the distractions, are the other challenges and difficulties that come into play in our daily lives, that because life is bigger than any of us, the universe, life, etc., is bigger than any one person. So there's things that we'll need to adapt to, on the journey to where we're going to go, and adhering to that when necessary. So those are just a few things to keep in mind in being consistent. On the front end of being consistent is really identifying and the things that we want to achieve in the first place. What do I want to achieve? What do I want to accomplish for myself? And then understanding, this kind of goes along with the strategies of goal setting, of what those things are going to need to be. I call them behavioral interventions. I mean, I might as well lay it out here. So when some of you may have heard of SMART goals, the acronym SMART, and I've kind of taken that and streamlined it a bit to make it even more simple. So the first thing, uh, taking the R in SMART, is realistic. So the first thing that we want to achieve when we want to achieve something, goals, etc., it has to be realistic. I know it's nice and warm and fuzzy and stuff to say, well, anything's possible. No, quite frankly, it isn't. Now, I'm not saying that to be negative or whatever, but you know, if I was to say at 5'10", 48 years old, if I was to say right here and now, I want to play center for the New York Knicks, that is delusional. Okay, I'm not tall enough. I'm too old to, just physically impossible for me to even try to play in the NBA. Okay, that is delusional. So if a individual person, based on their individual strengths, what have you, makeup, have something that they want to achieve, but is just it's not going to happen. It would be delusional to say. I mean, it's a silly example, but it would be delusional for me to think that that's going to happen. So, another thing I lay out for people when I'm helping them with things is to set a list of strengths and weaknesses so that it it helps a person of any age at any given point in time of what would be delusional and what would be very, very realistic for them. So it needs to be realistic. It needs to be within the realm of possibility for that individual person. Okay. I mean, even Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, if he wanted to play center, he wouldn't. That would have been delusional for him. He's just not tall enough. That kind of thing, physical dimensions and stuff. The next thing that a goal needs to be is it needs to be time centered. There has to be time parameters on the goal, and that in and of itself could make the goal realistic or unrealistic. So, if you have a high school kid, maybe 16, 17 years old, going into, is in his or her junior or senior year of high school, and that the individual person says, I want to be a medical doctor. Well, that may very well be realistic for them. They've got the acumen, they've got that kind of skill set, that mindset, great work ethic, all of it. So that in and of itself is realistic. But if they were to say, I want that to happen in 2 years, impossible. No reputable university, because that's an academic sort of track of a profession, is going to allow that to happen. That would be delusional. But if that same kid was to say 10 years or 12 years, I'm just kind of throwing a longer term out there, absolutely realistic. The third thing that's, by the way, the T in SMART. The next thing that needs to happen is it needs to be specific. Okay, the S in SMART needs to be specific. So the more specificity, the better. That's the vision that you're really, envisioning for yourself, and that's the target in which you're shooting for. So the more specific, the bigger the bullseye, if that makes sense. And so when that occurs, it becomes easier to hit. Not easy necessarily, maybe a challenge and stuff, but it makes it easier rather than kind of just saying, well, I mean, in that example, a kid, what would make that more specific is what university do they want to attend? What kind of, medicine do they want to practice, etc. As opposed to just saying, I want to be a medical doctor. Well, that can, be a lot of things. So, excuse me. And the last thing, it needs to be measurable, the M in SMART. So the first three are very, very important. Recognizing what's realistic, having that time parameter on that goal, and creating that clear focused vision. But until we actually start to do anything about it, it it's nothing. It's just an idea. It's just up here. And so until for anything to manifest, we have to actually enact behavioral interventions, what I call doing something about it. Otherwise, it's nothing really. So, and that's where the consistent circling back where we start with this. Um, that's where the consistency is so key. Quality with the consistency and consistency with the quality. It's not about quantity in achieving, excuse me, in achieving things. I mean, our output on any given day, like our 100%, or every fiber of our mind, soul, body, the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into something. Our output of that might be greater or less than on any given day. Just our energy levels may not quite be there on one day and then better, etc. That might vary. There may be some variability there, but doing it every day to the best of our ability when we don't feel like it, that's when you need to do it more. That's more of a reason to do the thing, is when you don't feel like it. Those are the people that become champions in their own lives, rather than people that don't achieve what they want to achieve and become depressed or resentful of themselves or other people or what have you. Uh, so that's the crux of today, of this particular one of three video on Memorial Day, is consistency. See you in a few minutes.